Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mai, good evening. It's 5:30. This is Update for Thursday, 9th of November 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news on the Isle of Man. Background to that news, we've got sport and business and Sea Watch and travel updates. And the newsmakers in person this evening. The captain of the Parish of Maloo has died at 93. Electoral boundary changes could be coming. Wright's Pit North may accept landfill to 2030. Will we ban XL bully dogs here? And the Ravens are in action in Liverpool tonight at 8 o'clock.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. Fastamai, Simon Richardson.
Fastamai. There could be some electoral boundary changes before the next general election on the Isle of Man. If approved, the changes would affect Glen Faber and Peel, Middle, Ramsey and either Ayr and Michael or Garth. The Electoral Commission is an independent body that's been reviewing the 2021 election and will be recommending changes to Tynwald after a series of public meetings and an online consultation. Two watches made by Isle of Man-based watchmakers and described as horological masterpieces have been sold for more than $3 million. The pieces, created by the late George Daniels and his protege Roger W. Smith, have been bought by collectors at Sotheby's in Geneva. The captain of the Parish of Maloo, Roy Gelling, has died at the age of 93. He held the position since his appointment in 1996 and was a popular member of the local farming community. International news, the Colombian Football Federation says the father of Liverpool footballer Luis Diaz has been released after he was kidnapped by a group called the National Liberation Army. He was taken alongside the forward's mother by armed men nearly 2 weeks ago. She'd previously been freed. Labour's accusing the UK Home Secretary of being out of control and of stoking up tensions. In a newspaper article, Suella Braverman's claimed pro-Palestinian mobs are largely ignored, despite obviously breaking the law during demonstrations, while right-wing protesters were rightly met with a stern response. And Israel has agreed to pause operations in northern Gaza for 4 hours a day. It's to allow humanitarian aid into those caught up in the conflict with Hamas. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with more news at 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Jeremiah, thank you. Simon, from the Ronaldsway Met Office, there's still a warning of occasional strong winds in the south. State of sea is slight or moderate. And the weather this evening, mostly dry, a light west wind this evening. Lowest temperature through the night is 7 degrees. For Jehenya, Friday, mostly dry tomorrow, then sunny intervals, periodic showers in on a moderate to fresh northerly up to 10 Celsius, less windy overnight into Saturday, minimum 7 degrees in Fortchesson. Sunny spells, a light to moderate northerly, veering east in the afternoon, top temperature 10 Celsius. Tides on the way back in, high water 4 minutes to 9 tonight, low water 29 minutes after 3 a.m. Sunrise 24 minutes to 8 tomorrow morning, and the morning high water 22 minutes to 10.
Manx Glass and Glazing are able to offer an emergency out-of-hours boarding up service. Call 491918.
The captain of the Parish of Maloo, Roy Gellings, died at the age of 93. He held the position since being appointed in 1996 and was a popular member of the farming community. Simon's back with more detail.
Roy was also a president of the Isle of Man Billiards and Snooker Association and a former island champion. A minute's silence was held before Wednesday night's matches in his honour. Roy once hosted Alex Hurricane Higgins at his home during one of the Star's visits to the island. And he was a huge supporter of the Southern 100 race races. Acknowledging his contribution to the event as a fan and a marshal, the Southern 100 Club said he never missed a meeting from 1955 to 2022. Roy, they said, helped the Southern 100 gain the reputation it now has as the friendly races. The club has offered its sincere condolences to Roy's family and friends. Roy also dabbled in local politics, serving 2 terms as a commissioner in Maloo during the 1970s. But it was as a farmer and a proud Manxman that Roy Gelling will be best remembered.
More on those potential electoral boundary changes before the next general election on the Isle of Man. Here's Christian Jones.
If approved, the changes would affect Glen Faber and Peel, Middle, Ramsey and either Aaron Michael or Garth. The Electoral Commission is an independent body that's been reviewing the 2021 election and will be recommending changes to Tynwald after a series of public meetings and an online consultation. Constituency borders are based on a calculation which looks at the average population per constituency and gives up to 15% leeway. It was previously revealed that Glen Faber and Peel's eligible voter population sits at 17%, whilst Ramsey's figure is at 18.3%. If politicians approve the changes, the next time we put our slip of paper into the ballot box in 2026, if you live in one of the areas in question, you could be voting for a different MHK hopeful and in a different constituency than you did in 2021.
The Isle of Man in 30 minutes. Update on Manx Radio with Andy Wint.
Fast am I, 24 minutes now before 6. Nearly 2 weeks since their last match, FC Isle of Man return to league action tonight when they travel to Liverpool to face Lower Breck. Kick-off 8 o'clock. Ravens boss Paul Jones explains his side's recent run of 4 wins from their last 6, what challenge they're expecting tonight and how they've used the extended break.
We've actually taken advantage of having a little bit of a rest, to be honest. It took an awful lot out of people the first part of the season with so many away games kind of back to back, and so we took the opportunity after the game against Irland was called off on the Tuesday after Wythenshawe. We had a session on that day and then we had time off in effect, so the Thursday and the Saturday we gave back to everybody so they could spend time with friends and family and rest and recuperate a little bit. As we've spoken about previously, I think performances have been really, really good even prior to this kind of like 4 wins, and it was just really seeing games through and not kind of losing winning positions, and I think we've done that, maybe not as comprehensively as we could have done, but you know we're getting ahead in games and we're staying there, and that's good, that's progress. It's playing for that full 90 minutes, 95 minutes and not letting your foot off the pedal and making sure that you see games through, and that's what we've done the last kind of 4 games or so, and it's about delivering that on a consistent basis, and we should be okay. They're a really good side, they've got really good footballers, they tend to get some really big results from time to time and then maybe go up. You know, their consistency isn't maybe as good as they would like it to be, so that, you know, they're not up at the top end of the table this season, but they have beaten some big teams and given some teams a real run for their money. So we're expecting a very competitive game. You know, the pitch is at 3G, it's quite tight. We're going to have to be really on our game to make sure that they don't get ahead. And certainly when we went there last season, it was part of our double-header weekend with Longridge, and we were excellent. We were really, really good and dominated the game. And, you know, that's our plan tonight, is to go and really play on the front foot and make sure that we don't give them an opportunity to settle and, you know, put them under a lot of pressure from the first minute and hopefully all the way through to the end of the game.
Plans have been submitted which aim to extend the life of Wright's Pit North for another 7 years. The Manx government's hoping it can now accept landfill material to 2030. The story from Beth Espy.
The landfill site near Bride had been due to close in December 2020, having come to the end of its licence. But it's been kept open since then on a temporary basis while alternatives were looked at. At that time, the then Infrastructure Minister Tim Baker said there were still plans to open a new facility in the future, but no other possibilities were apparent then. Now, the Department of Infrastructure wants to extend the licence until the 31st of December 2030, with an additional year to enable the restoration scheme to be completed by the 31st of December 2031. Back in 2020, Garth MHK Daphne Kane said the DOI had been dysfunctional in its approach to finding a new site to handle construction waste. She questioned why it had taken so long at that time for a decision to be made.
They've had over a year to start this work. They went out last week and they did a quick quote looking for somebody to store on an 80% price, 20% quality storage of fiberglass insulation, plasterboard, asbestos, contaminated soil. Surprise, surprise, there's nowhere suitable. And wouldn't that take months, did he say 18 months of planning to be able to put the facility in place to replace Wright Pit North? So what has this department been doing for so long?
This is what the the then Infrastructure Minister Tim Baker said in response to that question.
It is now the only feasible option available to the department, which will, in compliance with the waste strategy, provide a safe disposal route for these materials for the immediate period, thus providing much needed certainty and clarity for the construction sector. In terms of the future, the department remains committed to the development of a fully engineered strategic waste facility elsewhere on the island, as detailed in the programme for government.
The Planning Committee will now decide whether or not to approve this latest application.
Sea-Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Motor vessel Manxman left Heysham at 29 minutes to 3. She's on the outskirts of the bay now. Will be onto the link span in the next 10-15 minutes or so. Departing this evening at 7:45, arriving in Heysham at 11:30. The 02:15 departure from Heysham has been brought forward to 10 to 2, 1:50 a.m. Passengers requested to check in no later than 1 a.m. That means Manxman's going to be back at about 5:15 tomorrow morning. And the morning departure, 8:45, Manxman heads to Heysham.
Follow the Steam Packet on Twitter for the latest sailing information.
The MGP Supporters Club's inviting all motorcyclists to meet this Sunday at the Laxey Beach Cafe to take part in an event to remember friends and loved ones. One of the organisers and mountain course travelling marshal, Jim Hunter, explains what exactly is going on.
This Sunday, of course, the 12th of November, is Remembrance Sunday, and down at the Laxey Beach Cafe they're going to have a 2-minute silence at 11 o'clock, and then that is going to be followed at 12 o'clock with it's called a 1-minute noise. And the idea is that all the motorcyclists on the Isle of Man come down to the Laxey Beach Cafe with their bikes, and at 12 o'clock they start them up, make as much noise as possible for exactly a minute, and then we stop. And that in itself is an act of remembrance, if you like. And as Alan Brew, the chairman of the Manx Grand Prix Supporters Club, puts it, it's to remember all those people that have passed under the checkered flag in the previous year. We all love the sport of motorcycling, but one of the things that people from outside the circle may not appreciate quite so much is there's an awful lot of camaraderie amongst everyday motorcyclists and people who compete in the races, and it's one of the things that makes it a great thing to be part of. And inevitably over a period of time you lose some of your friends, so to have a moment when you can get together and remember those people and have a nice cup of tea and a lovely piece of cake and make some noise legally on your bike is a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon. You think back to the Manx Grand Prix itself, when we had the Manx Grand Prix Supporters Club lap during Manx Grand Prix week. Apparently during that parade lap the lead bikes were going past the Sulby Glen Hotel while the last bike in the parade was just going through Ballacrane. What we hope, because it's the 100th year of the Manx Grand Prix this year, and Julie, who the proprietor at the Laxey Beach Cafe, has suggested, and it would be wonderful if we could achieve this, if we could get 100 bikes on the promenade for 100 years of the Manx Grand Prix, that would be absolutely tremendous.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 17 minutes before 6, Adyen cut its medium-term sales target, earning praise from analysts who said the new forecast was more realistic at a time when the digital payment sector is struggling. The Netherlands-based payment company, whose clients include Netflix, Meta and Spotify, said it expects net sales to grow annually between a low to high 20s%, while it had previously forecast percentage growth between the mid-20s and low 30s. Shares in Adyen rose more than 35% as analysts were encouraged by their Q3 results and Investor Day. And for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. The European Court of Justice wants Apple to pay €13 billion. That's about £11 billion in back taxes in the latest move in a long-running saga between the EU, the US tech giant, and the Irish government. 3 years ago, a ruling found Apple had been given illegal tax breaks by the Irish government. Well, the ruling was overturned. Now, Advocate General Giovanni Pizzarella at the Court of Justice wants the case reviewed. He said a series of legal errors had been made and the ruling in Apple's favour had failed to assess correctly the substance and consequences of certain methodological errors that, according to the Commission decision, invalidated the tax rulings. The legal opinion is not a final verdict and is non-binding, but the court does tend to agree with such opinions in the majority of such cases. Apple said the initial ruling allowing the firm to avoid paying back taxes was very clear that Apple people receive no selective advantage and no state aid.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European markets closed higher as momentum in markets picked up on the back of robust corporate earnings. Oil moved higher and gold rebounded after falling for a third straight session. And the numbers reported by Ramsey Crookall. At the close in London, the FTSE 100 up 0.75%, 7,455. The DAX in Frankfurt's up 0.8% at 15,352. It's short time ago in New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial down fractionally 0.05% at 34,095. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index up just over 0.1% at 13,665. The S&P 500 in Chicago up fractionally 0.03%, 4,384. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling's trading at $1 22.7 cents, €1 14.5 cents, and 22 South African rand 79 cents. In commodities, gold's up 0.5% at $1,960 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude up 0.9% at $80.38.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future for a house, or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
An animal campaigner is urging the Manx government not just to follow England and Wales when it comes to banning XL bully dogs. The Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture has told Manx Radio it's assessing how to proceed, but Anita Williams from Animals in Distress believes a different approach could work here.
What I'd like for our island to do is set a precedent and give the people that do have XL bullies chance to have them DNA tested, have them licensed. 65,000 this year have been euthanised and they're getting dumped all over the place. Nobody wants them anymore. It was a fad, and unfortunately they're not little dogs that anyone else will want to take on. The XL bully sites over in the UK, the rescues are actually bursting at the seams with them, and that's before the ban comes in. They're finding abandoned litters of pups at the moment over there, especially up in Scotland. The girls there are working, nearly 24 hours a day trying to rescue as many as they can. They're getting found on the motorways or the side of the road, etc. So what I'd like our island to do, don't ban them, don't cause people to start giving up their dogs or dumping them on the MSPCA or with me. Let them be licensed. Let them prove that they are decent owners. I mean, I'm working with a lady now that's got 3 XL bully pups. She's amazing. Her husband, the whole family, they're working by the rules. They're setting the muzzles on their pups ready for if we do take a ban. They're training them. They're keeping them well educated. We need that chance on the island, and I think we don't need to go in with all guns blaring. We need to go in step by step, slowly. License the people who have them, license the dogs, just that breed. Let people work and not have that option of having to give their dog up to be euthanised.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates. Manx Radio Sport.
Faster My sports editor Rob Pritchard.
Faster My, good evening. Beginning this evening with day 3 of the Ireland Invitational Netball Games at the NSC, and today started with Orkney recording their second win in a row. They were 65-40 winners over Innismon, who are still without a win so far. Meanwhile, the latest game this afternoon saw a battle of the Channel Islands between Jersey and Guernsey. Jersey went on to claim their third straight win, 79-28. Jersey's Kat Lariche says they were delighted with such a commanding result.
The most important thing for us is to try and always stick to principles. Serena's make sure we're still doing all the things that we've been learning all season and we've been training for and working really hard for all through defence and attack, and just keep doing it and keep playing our game as much as we can.
The Isle of Man will be looking to make it 3 wins on the bounce from 6 p.m. tonight when they play Shetland. In cycling, New Zealand-based pro cycling team Black Spoke has announced it will conclude its activities at the end of the year. The squad, which includes Isle of Man rider Matthew Bostock, says it comes after the team was unable to secure the necessary sponsors to continue into 2020. 2024. In a statement, Black Spoke General Manager Scott Guyton says the team's performances have exceeded our wildest dreams. Separately, Bostock had some positive recent results for the team, including top 10 finishes in the Tour of Taihu Lake in China and the Tour de Langkawi in Malaysia in September. In snooker, Isle of Man's Daryl Hill has bowed out of the 2023 IBSF World Championships men's singles event in Doha at the last 16 stage. The Manxman was beaten by his opponent from Qatar 5-1 yesterday evening, but he and teammate Dolan Mercer are back in action in the team event today. They've been drawn against China, India and Qatar 3. And finally, this weekend will see the Isle of Man's table tennis competitors face national teams from the UK and further afield. 6 Manx players are taking part in this year's Home Nations International in Bangor, Wales, this Saturday and Sunday. Along with the Isle of Man, taking part will be Wales, Scotland and Ireland, as well as fellow island nations Guernsey and Jersey.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Got an inbound delay at Ronaldsway. The 5:25 Loganair from Manchester won't be in until 20 to 7 tonight. Then it's the 10 to 8 Loganair from London City and the 5 to 8 Loganair from Liverpool. The returning patient transfer is delayed inbound until 9 o'clock tonight. Outbound, it's the 6 o'clock Loganair to Liverpool, delayed until 10 past 7. That's the patient transfer outbound. And that's your last for tonight. On the roads, temporary lights and a 30-mile-an-hour limit on the new Castletown Road by Richmond Hill. Hillside Avenue, Douglas closed for adjacent office window replacement through to Circular Road. Temporary lights on Glen Crutchery Road at the roundabout with Victoria Road for resurfacing. And a section of Switzerland Roads closed for construction work through till this time next year. Closure of a section of Bretney Close in Derby for construction work, and Queen Street Castletown's closed for resurfacing. Temporary lights on Peveril Road in Peel for resurfacing, and those lights by Queen's Drive should be gone by now, but maybe today's the last date. Old Laxey Hill is closed for excavation work too.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
Two watches described as orological masterpieces and made by Isle of Man-based watchmakers, the late George Daniels and his protege Roger W. Smith, have been sold for $3 million plus at Sotheby's in Geneva. Both were bought by a collector from the United Arab Emirates after a hotly contested bidding process. Roger W. Smith, whose workshop is in Sulby, says it was extraordinary.
Yes, the first watch, the Millennium wristwatch, was a watch I completed in 2001. It was in the final stages of the Millennium Project, which was a reason for me moving over to the Isle of Man to help George create this series of watches. And in the final year, I asked if I could make a watch for myself in lieu of a bonus. And to my great surprise, George said yes, of course. So I made the watch, completed it in 2001, and then I had to come to the difficult decision in 2008 to sell the watch to a collector in order to raise funds to keep my business going and help it grow and so on. The battle in the end was between a collector in New York and then a guy who's based in the UAE in Dubai, but he'd flown in specially for the auction and he was the eventual winner. You know, we're very fortunate that we have a good number of very solid collectors dotted all around the world, you know, very good supporters of what we do here on the Isle of Man.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300.
Following the publication of a review into air services across the Isle of Man, it appears the prospect of a Manx airline is being rolled out. The Enterprise Minister, Tim Johnston, MHK, gives his thoughts on the document, which looks at passenger numbers to 2019, routes, and that open skies policy.
It was a really important review to get right. DfE were asked to procure the report, but ultimately what needed to happen was we needed to get a decision group set up, and that was of course the Strategic Air Group, and that took time. The report needed to be shared with the relevant airlines, which it has been, and then also the expressions of interest have now gone out for the Northwest and the London areas. Those are things we needed to get out and in order. I mean, it's a piece of detailed research. Obviously we've had historically an open skies policy. It's looking at that, saying is that working? What are other options? But it gives an understanding of what historically was in the situation, because of course the open skies policy has been around for 30 years. years. So it's looking at other ways of looking at that. Clearly, government's in a position to be able to do using incentives and disincentive. That's already happening. Now it's a situation when it can be looked at. There's a lot of nostalgia about the fact that we used to have our own airline, but ultimately what we're seeing and what it talks about is that balance between having a larger carrier, so the budget-based carrier, but also the importance of having more regional airlines and how they work together for the best interest of the island. That's what's important. Yes, in the past we've had Manx Airlines, but I think we need to remember, if we go back 20 years, the costs involved, we're talking incredibly high ticket prices. We all, I think, welcome budget airlines and the lower costs that are available. Going back to having a national airline again, the costs involved in that would be really prohibitive.
There's a reminder that if you're considering a career in nursing, you can study here. You'll have your university fees paid for 3 years and get an annual bursary of £10,000. It's true, Manx Care's recruiting for trainee medical professionals to study for a Bachelor in Nursing qualification next year. Here's Senior Lecturer Dr. Bernadette Devlin.
We've had a long-term professional relationship with the University of Chester, so we work very well together over all the years. Our students get, because they're smaller groups, they get more support in regards to study skills and study advice. Pastorally as well, they're helped, and we're very blessed within our clinical areas that we actually have the staff to support our students in placement. So we nearly have a 1-to-1, if not 2-to-1, registered staff looking after our students. We do have quite a wide range of age groups, so it's really, really good that our older nurses, student nurses, don't have to leave the island. They can stay here with their family and friends. And some people are just, even the younger ones, are not ready yet to leave the island. Sometimes that 3 years can actually make a massive difference around maturity and wanting to experience life. So it's great that we can offer them 3 years nursing program here. We've actually opened up to the numbers. So we used to be 10 for mental health and 15 to 20 for adult, but now we could take up to 40. Very lucky with the facilities we have here in Kildare as an educational institution, and also in the practice areas, because the placements are across the island and more placements are wanting the students in their areas, and they're quite happy to support them. So it's brilliant now that we can have more. So the more the merrier that apply. Please come along.
That's it for Update Tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to the newsreader Simon Richardson, producer Beth Espy. After the news at 6, Ivy Benson in 1955 with Howie Kane. It's true.
WINT